So this is my second time at a Domino event, and I'm going to talk about regulation. So I'm really sorry. You must have done something terribly wrong for them to invite me back and talk to you about regulation. Now, a disclaimer is that I'm not a lawyer, so anything I say cannot be legally used against me when it comes to this. We're going to talk a little bit around this, and I joke, but it's quite a dry subject, so I'm going to try and make this as interesting and engaging as possible. But as UBS rightly pointed out, when it comes to regulation and governance and all those things, you generally follow the strictest rules. That way you never really fall foul of everything else out there. And with that in mind, Europe has the most comprehensive AI regulation, the EU AI Act. So we're going to look around the world, but we're generally going to focus in on that because it's the most strict. We have a loose agenda, but you'll probably find that I'll bounce around and not really stick to this. But what we're going to cover here is what we see in the market at the moment, regulation-wise. We're going to cover what we'll see in the future, how we divide these up, and then some real-life ways we can actually meet these requirements. And then we're going to look to the future and see what's coming. So first of all, let's take a look at what's going on around the world. You will see every country struggling with this. Some are taking different approaches. EU has gone with an all-encompassing act. America is taking a federal approach. And then you have China with a very strict approach, much more centralized. But what this shows us is two things. Regulation comes when a big change is happening, and we see a big change happening. Secondly, regulation is incredibly hard to write when you need to balance innovation and also stop bad things from happening. We all walked into this room today, and you didn't notice the fire exit there, did you? But that's there because, unfortunately, someone got hurt. Someone got hurt, and we had to write a rule. So we can still go about our day, still do the things we want, but be protected. And good regulation, like the EU's AI Act, I would say, does this. It balances innovation and keeping us safe. Now, we also have sort of a diverging in the market as well. We have, as I said, the US going with a more federal approach, or wait and see, less regulation. And then we have other countries falling behind places like the EU and copying what they do. And you'll see this within many fields. GDPR, for example, was heavily copied by other countries. And this is my prediction. I think what we'll see here is it will not slow down innovation, in particular in areas like finance. Big companies aren't going to stop, as you've seen, using AI. They're going to accelerate. And I think some of the areas which will see most disruption is less regulated areas, such as the entertainment industry. Those areas will be significantly disrupted. So we've had a good look at that. Let's take a brief look at what the EU's AI Act is trying to do. There's some core tenets to it, some core themes. You'll see it weaved through all of the Act. And you'll see this in other areas, in other countries too. It's aiming to be safe, transparent, traceable, and it also wants to be non-discriminatory, which is incredibly hard to do when it's based on our data, and also environmentally friendly. And that's not just shoehorned in at the end there. It really does need to be environmentally friendly. You have large organizations looking to spin up nuclear power plants to feed this beast. I think it's Azure is looking at 3 Mile Island, which is a nuclear power plant in the US built in the 70s. You might remember it had a small nuclear meltdown. Well, they're looking to use that to power their infrastructure needs. And in the EU, roughly 61% of European people look favorably upon AI, but a large proportion of them, 88%, want this carefully managed, and rightly so, in my opinion, too. So how are we going to go about doing that? How can we carefully manage all these things that we're looking at building? Well, they want to take a risk-based approach, as you can see here, and it divides your AI use cases into risk categories. The top being prohibited, unacceptably risky, we can't use those, and high-risk ones. Those are the two ones I'm interested in the most. The lower limited and minimal, in my opinion, could be merged into one bracket, but they're light touch. They're things like chatbots in your HR environment. You don't really need massive amounts of regulation to run those, but unacceptable, banned. High risk, lots of rules to follow. So let's have a quick dive into those and see what they look like, because they're the most interesting ones to us. Unacceptably risky AI is things like using artificial intelligence in children's toys to promote bad behavior. And I don't just mean my child drawing on the walls, I mean dangerous behavior. This is interesting because we'll see this play out in real time right now. as Mattel are talking about using AI in some of their dolls. So they're going to have to look to this and make sure they stay compliant. We're also banning social scoring. You've probably heard of that. That's where each individual gets a social score based on how good they are, how well behaved, and they'll have privileges taken away from them. Some countries are actively using this and looking at it. To do it properly, you need artificial intelligence. So we ban that? No. And you'll see some others there too. There are caveats here. For law enforcement and such, we are allowing AI into certain areas. As you can imagine, if we're in a scenario where there's a lost individual, we probably want to be able to scan cameras and look for them. Now, high-risk areas. This is the one that's very interesting, the area that we could probably help with the most, Domino and NetApp, and the area we'll be covering most. This is artificial intelligence used in critical infrastructure, education, immigration, law enforcement, areas where you want oversight. You want to think about this. You don't want it to just run wild. Let's take critical infrastructure, for example. We've already got use cases looking at routing trains based on dynamic loads. If there's a football game happening in London, we could use AI to look at the schedules for the trains, couldn't we, and automatically route them. If something goes wrong, if one of those trains hurts somebody because AI picked it down one route, surely we need some oversight. Education. If we're going to use it to mark our exams, because the kids are already using it to cheat, right? So let's use it to mark. We need someone to overlook. I'm not going to spend 3 years of my life studying for an exam for an AI that's only got 50% accuracy rate to give me a D. I mean, I got Ds in all my exams anyway, so AI is not going to help that. But we want oversight in these areas, and rightly so. So where can we get started as an organization like UBS or someone with all of these requirements? Some areas we can look at with minimum worries about regulation is start with generic. Think about privacy of your data as you start building out a model. Think about the fundamental rights. And here's my favorite, explainability. Can you explain what you're doing to a group of people? I try this with my 5-year-old. When I walk in on her and she's drawing on the walls and hiding £5 notes in between the floorboards, I say, Grace, can you explain what you're doing to me? When you ask somebody to explain what they're doing, it makes them think. And then specific ways we can go about, and we'll get much more into detail with these later, but I'm just going to high-level touch on them now. Things like document everything you're doing, test and trace everything. Have a board, internal and external, to run this past, monitor and validate. And this has been used in real-life scenarios. We have the NYU Lagoon in the US. I know we're talking about EU laws and regulations here, but this is a great example. And this is publicly referenced. The links are at the bottom if you want to go look at it. What they did is took patient data, and they identified we wanted a way to explain to our patients in a much easier way what the doctors are saying, looking at case notes going quite far back and all that sort of thing. This is a common problem. If you've ever tried to read your doctor's notes, it looks like it's written in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs with words that none of us can understand. So if you can take that and translate it into something that you can understand, you as a patient feel more empowered. You have much more ability to get better when you understand your own health. So they took these requirements, they had these ideas, and they put them into effect. And they found it worked. They were able to take all that and put it in a much more natural language for their patients. They had a 50% accuracy, more than 50% of discharge notes saw marked as complete, reduction in words and better understanding. And again, you can see that, it's in the JAMA network, and it's warts and all too. They will give you the good bits and the bad bits, but this is a real life example, and they did it all while staying regulatory compliant. They did it through de-identification of their data and properly governing their data. So it is very much possible in a highly regulated area. But why am I here, NetApp? Why are we partnered so intrinsically with Domino? Because Domino touch on every part of the stack, the management, the deployment, and the development and the deployment. We, NetApp, we are the custodians, the kings, the queens, and everything in between, the defenders of your data. And there is no AI without data. We work hand in glove. Most importantly, and my favorite bit, which I don't think gets mentioned enough, is this bit. They provide a single pane of glass. Oh, my clicker. Please, don't do this to me. I was in my flow. I don't know if you can manually move that, please. Aha, there it is. They have a single pane of glass which traverses the entire system. And for governance and meeting regulatory requirements, you need this. Why do you need it? Because you often have to prove what you're doing. You have to prove that I can trace the decisions my artificial intelligence made. I have to prove that it's restorable. And with Domino, you can achieve this. I find it quite interesting. This is my job. I go around and talk to people, particularly C-level, and talk about what they're doing. Domino is actually on the lips of a lot of large companies. They have developed a reputation for this. They know what they're doing. We provide the data, they provide the expertise. Please work, yes. So, a lot of people here are technical in the audience, and they're probably thinking, Adam, stop talking about the fluffy stuff. Give me some real-world things we can actually do today. Let's have a look at those things. Now, I have some favorite articles in the EU AI Act. You heard that right. Favorite articles. I don't get invited to many parties at all, as you can tell. Now, these are my favorite ones. Why? Well, record keeping. These are some requirements of the EU's AI Act. And again, even if you're in a different country, you generally follow the most strictest model. And even if you don't want to, it's worth reading anyway, because this is good practice. On one side of the screen in the blue background, you'll see where I've directly copied quotes from the EU AI Act, kind of summarize them on the other side, and then I'm going to highlight to you in that funny color, because I'm colorblind, I don't know what it is, the bits that I think are important. The Act says we need to allow technically for recording of events, and we need to record a natural person, that's a human being, who agreed with that decision. Let's go back to routing trains. If I'm going to route a train using AI, I need somebody who understands trains, understands the network to say, yes, that was the right decision. Because accountability is important here. If we're developing AI that could affect someone's life, we need to have accountability. We at NetApp provide the ability to create immutable logs. So when you're making these decisions, you need to keep them for a certain amount of time. In the health industry, it could be the life of the patient, 80, 120 years, and furthermore. But why is this important? Because these are under attack. In Las Vegas, last year I think it was, 2 hotels got taken offline. They encrypted production data. They deleted the logs and deleted the backups. Why did they delete the logs? Because the logs tell a story. They show you where the holes are in the system, how they got in. They delete the logs so you can never find out. They delete things like this so you can never know where they've been. So it's really important that we back up our logs and our decision-making process, because that's what the attackers want. And it's really important, and that's what those little fingerprints are, we record who made those decisions. So we must make this data immutable. That's a real-life thing you can do today in your environment to start meeting some of the requirements of the EU's AI Act. Second part is accuracy, robustness, and cybersecurity, Article 15. This is quite an interesting one, because what they're looking for here is cybersecurity and technical redundancy in your artificial intelligence. Why? Remember, this is high-risk AI, so transport, healthcare, decision-making. If this goes away, if you have an artificial intelligence making those decisions in real time and it falls away, where's the backup? This has happened in other industries. We've moved to automated tools, lost the skill sets to do it manually. Those people have retired. I was recently in the water industry, and they're giving iPads to retired water engineers who are sat at home in their rocking chair so they can FaceTime with 20-year-old engineers saying, yes, I've seen that pump. I installed it 20 years ago. Here's how you fix it. Because we're losing the skills. So we need to have backups and redundancies. Keep those things alive, because these things will fail. Also, they're very worried about people messing with the AI, unauthorized access, those sort of things. Furthermore, they're worried about people poisoning data sets. Does anyone know what that is, poisoning data sets? It's where you will deliberately, maliciously feed bad data to an AI. There's always a funny example of this. It's Google's Gemini. You could Google how to make cheese pizza, and Gemini would say to you, pepperoni, etc., glue. Glue. Put glue in pizza. It would tell you to do this. Me, I can't cook. I definitely put glue in pizza. I would. Why is it telling me to put glue in pizza? Because it was trained on Reddit, a popular online forum where people discuss things. And what they were discussing was marketing photos of cheese pizza. When you see the big pizza slice come like that and you get the long stringy cheese, that's got glue in it. AI didn't know the difference. This is a fun example of dirty data. But what if I wanted to do this maliciously? People are worried about this. I could potentially inject dirty data and a ticking time bomb for an AI. So we need to think about this. And the ways we can protect ourselves, ironically, is with more AI. Using things like user anomaly detection. This is where we train a model in your environment, running locally. And it looks for what you're doing, what day-to-day activities Adam does. Me, I present all day long, create these PowerPoints, and just talk with people. If Adam started messing with trainer set data or creating HR records, that's not more normal Adam's behavior. The model on AI knows, and it reacts in split seconds, sub-millisecond seconds. We have to use AI to do these things because there's not enough human beings anymore. We literally cannot train enough people, and we can't react quick enough to protect ourselves. So we have to use artificial intelligence. This is incredibly accurate. It's got over 99% accuracy rate. And how do I know this? Because we tested it in the most difficult environment on the planet where people are coming and going, working at the most weird hours. Do you know where that is? Universities. Because students write their thesis at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we tested it there, and it worked. Also, we're looking for encryption events. That's the graph you can see. Because every environment has a level of encryption, whether it be a payslip I've sent to you with a password or an Oracle database that's encrypted. But what you don't want to see are those great big spikes. Those big spikes are someone attacking you, encrypting your production data. And we've seen this. Or the small trickle of someone just going around dotting, stealing files, encrypting them. That is where user behavior analytics comes in, because we look for those events. Wow, that was a lot of information, wasn't it? I'm going to take a brief pause, and we're going to look to the future. But we're going to stay with AI. Now, I'm going to put a picture of a cat up there, as you can see. And don't worry, I'm not going to talk to you about AI-powered cats taking over the world or anything weird like that. What I wanted to do is all to imagine a cat. And we're sticking with AI here. And I'm going to put this cat in a box. And then I'm going to put some poison in that box. And I'm going to cover that box, and I'm going to make it so you can't hear it, see it. And I'm going to put it over there. You don't know whether that cat has eaten that poison, do you? Could have eaten the poison. It could have died. It might not have. This is a very popular thought experiment. And if anyone can remember the name of the man that came up with it, please do shout it out, because I always forget. Schrodinger's cat, that's it. Schrodinger said that we don't know if the cat's alive or dead, do we? Therefore, the cat exists in 2 states, both alive and dead at the same time, until we reveal the cat. We take it out of the box. We don't know. This is quantum superposition. The cat exists in every state, from alive to dead, simultaneously. Why do you care? This is the foundation of classical computing. Computers are 1s, 0s, on, off, Boolean, yes or no. If we can take advantage of this quantum superposition, apply it to computers, we can accelerate computers phenomenally. The next evolution of computing. And that's what this is. Quantum computing takes advantage of that quantum mechanical phenomenon. Is the cat alive? Is it dead? No, it's everything in between until we look at it. Why is this important? Because you have people like Jensen standing on stage, and he's the CEO of the largest chips manufacturer on the planet, saying that we are at an inflection point right now where this is coming. It is coming. It's the next big thing. And you've got to believe Jensen, because he has no skin in the game at all. He's just a very rich man with some shares in chips. Why am I talking to you about this? Because when we marry it with AI, we are going to see, in my opinion, the next great leap forward. And so these are some of the areas we might see it in. I'm only going to pick one because we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to focus on complex simulations. This, in my opinion, will be the great leap forward for us. If we can take AI, marry it with quantum, which again is extremely powerful computing, but not in the classical sense, we can accelerate complex simulations. And we've always done simulations. We did them in the caves. We said, should we go outside and hunt? No, it's raining. I'm less likely to catch something. If I can move forward simulations on human behavior, weather patterns, biological processes or chemical reactions, I could discover new things. When teamed with AI, this is going to be so powerful. But with everything, there is a cost to it. Now, we are worried. We are worried that with this, we will break our encryption standards. I want you to think again, another thought experiment of a safe in the corner. It's got 4 of those old-fashioned dials that turn. It's got 4 digits you can put in to unlock the safe. That's 10,000 combinations. It takes you 5-10 seconds to input one combination. It's going to take you basically a day to crack that safe, isn't it? If you stop for some breaks and having a chit-chat. Quantum computing turns you into Superman. You can now turn that at lightning speed and open it within a few seconds. That is what will happen to our encryption standards. Quantum computing will allow you to break the foundations of secure modern communications. And we are worried because people are now stealing data that they cannot decrypt right now, and they're keeping it for later and hoping to decrypt it later. And they're targeting aviation, finance, healthcare, government data. Things like healthcare data is incredibly valuable, incredibly valuable. You can sell to a patient for years. You can take that data and extrapolate upon it. So they're stealing that and hoping that when quantum computing is a viable alternative to cracking it with brute force, they can use it. And remember, Jensen thinks it's just around the corner. We have live chips now. They're only a few qubits, but they're accelerating very, very rapidly. So if any of you remember the Y2K bug, and I'm showing my age here because I'm 40, and it's 2025, I think, so it was a long time ago, we had a similar issue. And for the young people in the audience, and I know there is a lot of you here, I can see you, that was an issue where we worried our clocks wouldn't cope with the year 2000. So we sent engineers into every facet of the world trying to fix these clocks before planes dropped out of the skies and nuclear power plants exploded. It never happened because they managed to fix most of the clocks. They stemmed the damage. And this is the transition period we are in now, where we're hoping to go around and fix our encryption standards, which is a lot harder than you think. It's not a plug-in thing. You can't just rip it out and put it in, because we've been building these for 20, 30 years, and they're in everything. But we need to do it, and we need to do it with post-quantum cryptography. This is standards that you cannot break. Go back to that safe I imagined earlier. Take those 4 digits, and now say you've got 1,000. And the time it would take you to crack it is you'd die before you could crack it. Even Superman now would take him a hell of a long time to crack that safe. That's what we're doing. We're upgrading our standards. And this goes into everything. It's everywhere. It's in your environment. It's in my environment. It's in our storage. It's in our operating systems. It's in our keys exchanges. We are going through everything, slowly but surely, updating it, looking for it. Because we need to do this now before it comes. But the answer isn't necessarily the standards. It's protecting your environment, because prevention is always better than the cure. And I would argue the most powerful thing we can do is use artificial intelligence, what I mentioned earlier. Use AI to protect your environment. Look for that anomalous behavior. Look for people trying to steal things. So, with that in mind, as we draw to a close, we say we have the most secure storage on the planet. So when you use Domino, you're getting the most secure storage on the planet for your valuable data. We are going to be the most secure storage on the planet, not just today, but of the future as well. And some of the ways we are doing that is by introducing those standards now, today, in our storage. We've got them in right now, which are uncrackable. And we're looking at data in transit and data in use. Now, data in use is a fascinating area, because that's the memory, right? The memory in your servers. How do you protect the data in the memory quick enough? We're going to need to come up with potentially new technologies, maybe new offload cards, but people are working on this. So with that in mind, the takeaways for this are, be aware that this is coming. Start thinking about applications that you could use this in your environment. Think about how you could potentially accelerate things. You can actually, I think, buy time on qubits in Amazon's environment right now if you wanted to try it. Seed the conversation with your security experts. Start saying to them, have you thought about this? Have you found the standards in your environment? Have you looked around it? And then ask yourself the question, are you ready? So thank you. Hopefully that wasn't too tough when I talked about regulation. I see no one fell asleep. I'm quite proud of that. I have 0 friends because this is my favorite topic, so please add me on LinkedIn so I can pretend I have a large friend list. Thank you very much for listening to me.